And art, music, and handwork, always a part of everything we do. You saw with the math, the giraffe, there's a potential for art in everything. You could be doing any kind of lesson. There would be the potential to use some art in conjunction with whatever you're practicing. We also do have directed art lessons. So here's an example of a group that has all had a lesson on a particular technique. I believe this technique was making birch trees. Possibly this is the one where they take a credit card and they draw the paint down with a credit card to make it look like birch. And here we've got a third grader who has been embroidering. So these figures you see on the cloth here, he traced those with the geometry material and then embroidered them. And the goal is he wants to make a quilt out of this. So we've got art materials that are freely available. So if somebody says, hey, I just really worked hard on this poster and I'd like to paint it with watercolors, they can come right over and get everything they need to just do that. So certain materials, they get an initial lesson on how to use that material, and then it's freely available to them. Other things like the hot glue gun require a little more of a training session and a little more supervision, but we try to make as much available as we can. And then just real quick, I wanted to talk a little bit about the balance between freedom and responsibility. You'll see here a first grader's work journal. So this is an expectation. And I explained to them that when you go to a Montessori school where you are able to choose your work, then you as the student have the responsibility of tracking your work. In another kind of school, the teacher does all the tracking of the work. But that also means the teacher is giving the same lesson to everyone at the same time. And in our school, we'd like you to be able to choose your work, but you're going to have to be the one to record what you worked on. And so we have a first grader here. This is back in September. So this is just a few weeks into the school year. And Go Fish is a reading game that we have. So that was reading practice. This says bells. So the tone bars in the classroom. And then she was reading Biscuit. So she's learned that she has to write the title of the book. Can't just write read. I need to know what book you read. So she read Biscuit, and then she read Copper. And then, and then she had a lesson on the needs of a plant. So she has recorded a pretty solid morning's worth of work here. And some of that I was involved in. I was certainly involved in the lesson, but the rest of it was chosen by her. And obviously Rebecca and I are observing what they're doing, but we are not directing her to go to those activities. She is choosing those on her own. And up here we have the cubbies in Rebecca's classroom. So this is what the first grader cubbies look like. I learned several years ago, because you can see down here we have these lockers. These are the upper L lockers. I used to use lockers with first graders, and I found that did not work because the door is closed and I didn't always see what was going on in there. And then I would sit down to meet with the child, and sometimes we'd just find a 12 by 12 cube of compressed paper. And after we'd extracted that, and we'd have to try to figure out what was in there, it's too much space for them to be managing all on their own. So this system is working better for us. We've done this for the last few years so that we can see how they're doing with managing their folders. And if we see that now these look amazing. This picture may have been taken right after orientation, because they definitely don't look like this right now.
Definitely. No. Some of them really like to have their papers flying out the top. And some of them have their pencils just stashed so they can walk by and grab something really special to them, like their pencil or their favorite eraser. Yes. It's amazing.
So I have started trying to train my older students to notice if you see a first grade cubby that's like exploding with a volcano of paper, please go help that person organize their cubby. I will consider it a personal favor. So I've got a couple of third graders and second graders who are getting the idea that that's a job they can go do, which is great.
I've got some first graders who are going to be amazing at doing that for others.
Yes.
But not able to do it for themselves.
Well, they also, right by their own cubby. I know.
They also should probably go ahead and do it for me, because I also would like the exploding, like, oh, here's my paper. It's the one exploding.
Yeah. Keeping your stuff is organized is definitely a long learning curve. Not for everyone, but for most. And we start with just 3 folders: math, language, and work in progress. So the work in progress is where you can keep something that's not quite finished. And that is enough to manage. Then they have a sketchbook, they have a spelling dictionary that we give them, and they have their journal, and that's about it. So that's enough. That's enough to manage. And then their pencil bag. Over here, we have the basket of pencil bags. So they each have their own bag with their pencils and erasers and sharpeners and things. So they manage that, and we just kind of keep an eye on it and give them some guidance when they need it. And then, of course, there is still a lot of practical life in the elementary. It's just that for this age group, it's no longer all about the process. You know, I'm sure in your primary, with your primary teachers and their parent ed nights, they have talked to you about how for the small child, it's all about process, and they'll just get lost in scrubbing a table, and they'll just scrub and scrub and scrub and scrub. And it's not about getting the table clean like it is for us. It's about how nice it is to see the bubbles swirling around, you know. And for these guys, it's not so much about the process anymore, but it is also not always about getting the room clean either, because sometimes they're not that interested in that. They can make a big, big mess and not realize that they're doing it. So it's our job again to set those boundaries and to say, hey, our plants are going to die if we don't water them. So let's take care of that. And again, that's another reason for having those live specimens around, so that they really care. They go, oh no, not the plants, or oh no, the bunny needs care. Oh no. So they have a natural inclination to help with those jobs. The sweeping is less exciting. Every day at lunch, I say, who wants to take out the compost? And they all raise their hand. And then I say, and who would like to sweep? And nobody raises their hand. But that's okay, because we still have to do it. And this is a great time to learn that some jobs just need to be done to take care of our community. All of us that use the community, that use the resources in the community, need to pitch in and help take care of things. So mostly they do it with pretty good humor. I find from my parent-teacher conferences that it's usually done with good humor at school and not so much at home. So that's normal, but you can expect it at home. It definitely can be an expectation. So everything we do in our classroom is guided by this concept of a balance between freedom and responsibility. There is a lot of freedom in a Montessori classroom, but it is freedom that is offered in response to the responsibility that you show. So we have a geometry material that is made entirely of sticks that can be fastened together into all kinds of polygons and angles and all kinds of cool things. But I find that people like to take the sticks and make them into shapes that look like guns, or they like to make a pinwheel and whip it around. Well, those people are not going to be using that work. So I'm going to have to find another way to teach you about angles, because I can't allow you to misuse a material like that and to show everyone else to misuse it. So there are going to be limits. It is not a free-for-all, like we said before. And so as they grow and develop their will, and they are able to show responsibility for themselves, for the materials, for the community, then we can allow some more freedoms in their choices. Some children will need a lot more help from me or from Rebecca to get this much work done in a morning. Some children are coming to me with their journal every single time. They finish one work, they come to me, and we talk about what the next work will be. Others are ready to be more independent and manage that more themselves. And the goal is always to see more and more of that self-management as we go forward.